Could
Maybe a
clerk
bumper.
you do a roll call? Acting clerk, I should say.
Dennis Fair,
Here.
Sherry Jasper, absent. Dave Martineau,
Here.
Sharon McElwain,
Here.
Peggy McKillop here, Steve Olson,
Here.
Dave Check, absent.
All right, next on the agenda, 1.03 is approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda for the annual budget hearing.
Motion.
Thank you. Motion by Martineau, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Olson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. I will call to order the budget hearing. And the first on the agenda is 2.01, welcome, and I'm supposed to turn it over to you. See, this was the easiest meeting I ever started.
Thank you, Vice President McElwain. Good evening, board members and community members. Thank you for joining us tonight as we review our district's 2024-2025 budget proposal. As superintendent of the CFAUSD Area Unified School District, I'm proud to report that we continue to be a vibrant educational community serving approximately 4,900 students across 12 municipalities and covering 230 square miles. The successful passage of last year's referendum has provided crucial support for maintaining and enhancing our educational services. However, we continue to face both opportunities and challenges. We are actively working to implement the unfunded mandate of Wisconsin Act 20 legislation, addressing the impact of declining enrollment on our state aid, and managing rising utility and fuel costs. Despite these challenges, our commitment to our core mission remains unwavering. This budget reflects strategic investments in key areas, including our exemplary fine arts programming, strengthening partnerships with local businesses and post-secondary institutions, enhancing support for personal and mental health needs, increasing participation in co-curricular activities, advancing classroom technology, and expanding opportunities in technical education. Every decision we make is guided by our mega result, ensuring all students graduate prepared with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors necessary to achieve their personal goals and make a positive impact in the world. With that, I now turn the budget presentation over to our business manager, Mr. Chad Children.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. We'll just go through this packet. So we'll have some commentary about some of the pages that are included. Some are just included for information, not only for the board, but for our public, if you will. First is several pages of fund definition. This is something that we added a few years ago. What it does is it helps define what the funds are and what they are used for. So if a person was to pick up this book, they'd be able to kind of discern what does all of this mean. Also, it does kind of describe what activity runs through them, and this is information that comes from DPI, but we just thought it'd be helpful to have in the budget book as well. The next set of worksheets is a summary of our district budget for the past 4 years, and also the current proposed budget. This too is something that you go to things and you learn from other opportunities, and this is something that a number of us saw and thought might be helpful for our book as well. So we added this a few years ago as well, and it's really just a financial snapshot. So if somebody was looking for a historic, somewhat comprehensive but high-level look at fiscal activity in our school district, this would be a place that they could go for that. We've got some information here as well. Mr. Holmes, I don't know if you want to go through some of the provided information, or if you want me to keep going.
Just go ahead and keep going.
Sounds good.
Doing great.
We got some information about our schools, numbers of students enrolled, and then some information about our teaching staff related to bachelor degrees and PhD degrees. Some information about our Chippewa Falls 4K Cardinals, our 4-year-old kindergarten program. We have 6 partner sites now. We had more in years past, but we have lost a few sites over the years. But you have some information about our partner sites as well. And we've got some information about our schools, starting first with our elementary, and moving on to our secondary schools, and then some information about our administrative offices and other buildings within the district. An introduction of all of you, our school board, information about our administrative team, information about our strategic plan. We did update our strategic plan last year, so we're in beginning year 2 of a 3-year plan, which is kind of exciting. Mr. Holmes had highlighted a little bit about our mega result in his opening remarks, but all students will graduate prepared with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors necessary to achieve their personal goals and make a positive impact in the world. This is a visual that actually Mr. Holmes created to kind of show the interaction between the school board as a governing body, all of our stakeholders, and how our operational expectations and results policies kind of fit into the structure of how we operate as a school district. So it's that interaction between you, us as an administrative team, and also our community. When we look at leadership, this began for us back in 2014. So we've had community conversations starting in 2014, another one in 2020, one in 2023, and then an annual update. This was the first annual update that we had most recently here in May of 2024. To kind of explain this continuum, what the community expects, what the board what the board monitors for, aligns with our strategic plan, our district goals, and our building goals. So for us, coherent governance began also in 2014. That's when our OE and results policies reports began. So again, we're now on our 4th variation of our strategic plan, and that kind of leads us to where we are today. We have representatives from each of our pillars here this evening. In student success, we have Mr. Scott Marty and Ms. Sue Kern.
Thank you very much.
Please describe, if you will,
You
the
bet.
student success pillar.
Happy to do so. So with the new community conversation, we made a shift from academic achievement pillar to student success pillar, aligning our commitments for our students based on redefining ready metrics that we have reported to the board on. Our commitment is to assure that we are providing the necessary resources and supports for our students to be successful and meet that mega result that we've developed based on the community conversation. The way that we're measuring that success is by using our student success dashboard and student success individual profiles that embed the various metrics from not only the academic side of things, but also on career readiness standards as well. Our strategies for success over the course of the 3 years that cascade to each of the buildings and eventually to the classroom is that we're looking to continue to increase the college and career ready scorecard indicators and monitor progress toward that 3-year measure of success, which is 100% of our students being college or career ready by that point. We started measuring redefining ready metrics in 2021. At that time, we had 71% of our students who were meeting college or career readiness standards. Moving to 2024, we have 80% of our students, so we're making continual growth. The metric that we have for this next year is 90% of our students meeting college or career readiness standards, and then year 3, 100%. We will continue to build connections and community partnerships through curriculum-connected learning experiences and or volunteer experiences across the K-12 system. And we will also assure that we're providing our educational staff with the necessary professional development, support, and coaching that they need in order to be successful with their students in the classroom as they're working toward all of those various metrics in our pillar. Scott, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add?
You did really good.
All right. And I'll turn it over to Chris, who's going to speak about
Sure.
caring culture.
Yes, caring culture pillars. So our commitment is cultivating an environment where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. If you remember, in the past, we focused on sense of belonging and emotional regulation. And in this go-round, we really felt like we needed to dig down a little deeper and get a little more specific on what that is and what we're looking at. And we also felt we were really looking mostly at students, and we wanted to be able to also focus on staff and parents. So our indicators of success for this school year are that will increase the percent of students engaged in activities, teams, and clubs. We know that when students are engaged in those things, they feel more a sense of belonging and are more connected to school, to staff, to other students in the building. We want to increase the percent of students who answer how connected do you feel to adults in our schools. We only have that question at 612. That's why it says 612. It's on our panorama survey. We will increase the percent of staff who answer how connected do you feel to your colleagues. We have that question on our Cardinal Care survey. I will say that I sat in a lot of interviews, and one of the things the teams usually say is when the interviewee asks about the culture, they say, we're a family here. And I think that we want to continue to support that connection of our colleagues. Makes for a better place for them to work, makes for a better classroom environment, and overall supportive environment. So we want to keep that going. We want to increase the number of parents who answer I receive positive phone calls, emails, or notes about my child from school. We get that from our Studer survey. Some of the strategies that we will be doing at the district level is our schools and departments will create regular opportunities for our staff to gather. We know that when they have opportunities outside of work or even during the school day that are more informal, they have the ability to connect more and feel more connected to each other. Our central office admin are going to visit each school 1 to 2 times per year. It's not that we don't visit schools. I want to be clear on what this sounds like. This is we visit all the time, but usually we have a purpose. We're going there for a meeting and for other things. This is more of a visit where we are not tied to some other reason to be there, that we are there and staff know that we are there and they can come and see us. Staff will support connections among students through school activities, clubs, and extracurriculars. So we're looking at ways to get more kids involved. And then staff will make those positive emails, phone calls, and notes home for each student. And our buildings have put plans in place for how teachers will and staff will continue to monitor that and increase that in their buildings.
Next we'll hear from our people pillar.
So in our people pillar, we are still working to empower a dedicated and talented team of employees who want to serve our students, our families, and our community. And this year, our results measures will be around retention rates, and we broke those into classified staff and certified staff. Currently, our retention rates are at about 84% for our certified staff and 61% for our classified or hourly staff. And so each department and building was given their own data to help monitor those retention rates. But throughout the year, obviously, we hope that we are able to maintain our staff throughout the whole entire school year. So in order to better kind of gauge the experience of our staff members, we want to be monitoring our staff attendance rates, our sub-fill rates, the office discipline referrals that are entered by our staff members for our students. And all of those pieces of data will be shared with the teams at each building or department on a monthly basis. They'll be getting their their September data soon. We're a little bit behind there. But this year we are focusing on the develop, implement, and reinforce protocols to engage staff in problem solving around pressing issues. That's probably the biggest strategy this year. And focusing in on sub shortages, the compensation process that we follow as a district, and then also talking about student behavior. And we will be overlapping our student behavior work with the caring culture pillar as well, and using some of the data that the caring culture pillar will get from the audit that all of our schools are going through to start that work and to be able to bring many different people together to complete that work. So we've started it. We've had some time together for our subcommittee, sub-shortage group. We'll be meeting this Friday around our compensation process, and then once we have our audit data back, we'll get our student behavior meetings up and going.
And from finance, facilities, and operations, it's gonna be a very active year for this group. There's a lot going on in here. We wanna make sure, and the commitment is advancing a strong financial foundation and the facilities to support our community. So not only making sure that we have adequate resources, but that we have the right facilities for our educational process to work in day in and day out. So this year will be a year that our master facility study will be updated. That's something we do every 5 years, and it's always a 30-year look. So kind of reflecting on the changes over the past 5 years. We've had some success in upgrading facilities in the past decade, but we do have some facilities that do have some significant improvement needs. A couple areas that we've scored very well in on parent survey. We're not leaving well enough alone. We'd like to see those results continue to grow. Since we've had a slight decline in enrollment, we are going to look at a long-term enrollment projection from Applied Population Labs. So a lot of these things are underway. Hopefully for us, one thing we want to do is maintain our pupil count from September to January. We can't necessarily control September to September because we're graduating more kids than we're bringing in, but trying to make the experience here for everybody who attends one that wants to keep them here. So ATS&R is who's doing our facility assessment. This is the third generation that they have worked on as well. And I mentioned Applied Population Labs. So we'll see some recommendations, not only with those population projections, but also what our current enrollments are, and then looking at the available space within our district, and if and when right sized to be modernized to our current educational delivery may or may not require some additions to plan for in the future. A district committee is going to be studying our elementary attendance boundaries. The last time that occurred was in 2005. It's time for us to do that again, which is going to be underway here. The planning for it has begun. I think the first meeting is November. And then all of our buildings and departments are going to talk about successes and results of all of those surveys that from the parent experience, sharing those positive things that come away from that. Next, we have just a reflection of our annual scorecard. Just everything that we've just talked about is kind of packaged into this scorecard look. This is something that we do annually. So for me, in the district, I think it's really neat how we do our 3-year strategic plan, but each year we develop a new scorecard. So it's not a plan that sits on a shelf. It is very active and one that we like to work on continuously and also report on our success or where we're struggling. This is page 2 of the scorecard. This budget development process chart really is a result of strategic planning, really. But it's really now. I think you've heard me say before, it's a little ironic. We get to our budget hearing and we're already 4 months into our fiscal year. But really it's now to 1 year from now. So I always like to look at this as a year of reflection, how we got to this point, but also what the next year is going to look like in terms of planning. We're already beginning our enrollment projections and our 5-year budget forecast. We then move into our internal process for how we develop our budget and staffing plans, work on hiring throughout the spring, seeing how we're gonna respond to all of the changes that we may see, both positive and negative. There will be a new biennial budget, so we'll try to make sure that we monitor that process, probably beginning sometime after the first of the year, and then make sure that when we get to this point next year, we have the most reflective budget that reflects our priorities and our goals for the year, and we have the resources to support. Some different timelines, just mentioned here we are in October, and we're just finalizing a third of our budget year with 2/3 remaining. A couple dates that all come after our preliminary budget. We get our state aid estimate on July 1st. Our pupil count date for revenue limit purposes was on September 20th. October 1st, we got our certified values of our properties within our district. We need that in order to determine our property tax levy. We got our state aid figure last Tuesday, October 15th. Tonight, we're conducting our budget hearing, and then we have until I think it's the first Tuesday, which is November 4th, to certify our tax levy to our municipal clerks. And then January 10th will be the next pupil count opportunity for us, which is used for ACE purposes. So I bring this up just because it makes planning all that much more important for us. So even though forecasting and planning is a best guess, if you will, it's better to at least have a best guess than wait until now to try to determine what our process might look like. We'll roll into the budget proposal here. This is in summary format. This is the one that gets published within the newspaper. And I'll kind of highlight some things in each of the funds, just to kind of make sure we're just sharing a flavor of what's included in this kind of condensed version. In Fund 10, top portion is revenues, kind of broke apart by major area. State aid and property taxes are certainly the two largest. And then expenses below that by major fund. So it's really just kind of condensed into instruction support. Special projects fund, mostly Fund 21 and Fund 27. Fund 21 is gifts. Fund 27 is our special education fund. So all of our special ed activity runs through that fund. Fund 39 is our debt service activity. Fund 49 with our building capital from 2018, from the 2018 referendum, and you'll start to see that kind of filter off here. Probably one more year of reporting, unless something changes, we'll fall off the books here. Fund 50 is our food service fund, so all of our pupil and adult meals, the National School Lunch Program that all filters through Fund 50. This just reflects the activity of that for the past 2 years in our planning for this current year. Fund 73 is our post-employment benefit trust, just recording the trust activity that runs through there. Fund 80 is our community service fund. Biggest programs that run through Fund 80 are adult community ed, our school resource officer program at both the high school and the middle school. We have Mentor Chippewa, protective behaviors program, our family support and resource coordinator, ATOD prevention, family crisis support specialist, our mental health navigator, all run through Fund 80. So when we kind of package that all together, all spending is down slightly over our prior year. Federal revenues skew that a bit, and also as some of that referendum planning from 2018 falls off the books too. So, but generally speaking, our spending is down from prior year. The tax levy, which is the next category here, is up 2.8 million. As you recall, we did pass a referendum for 2.5 million. We used up all of our ESSER funding, and then some factors too that also influence this are the voucher aid deductions that affect the revenue limit. Next, we have a budget adoption format. This is kind of a more expanded or a little deeper dive into the budget. And this is really just for reflective purposes. But again, I'll just kind of highlight some things here as well. In Fund 10, it's revenue by source. So you're probably used to seeing this, but just in a different format in our monthly reporting. Local sources, obviously our tax levy is the largest part of that, but this is also where we record interest income, gate receipts, we have a game or a contest that we charge admission to, things that students rent, if there are any fees or fines that go along with student activity, that is recorded in there as well. In the 300 level, payments to other Wisconsin school districts, that's where we record our open enrollment expenses for pupils open enrolled out of our district. State aid is the next category, or state sources. State aid being the largest one. State aid was also up this year, $945,683. And then I just want to highlight the categorical aid, source 690. That remains at $742 a pupil. It has been that way now for, I think this is the fourth year that has been flat as well. Moving into federal sources, that contains all of our title programs, Perkins. We've had some things fall off in federal sources. We had a mental health grant for 5 years that is over and done with in terms of the grant. And our ESSER funding, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3 was completed as of September 30th. So we have a little bit of that remaining in this fiscal year, but will not continue into next year. Some things that ESSER money, even though was through September 30th supported, was our virtual learning platform and support, some technology, curriculum, purchases and implementation, staffing was used to kind of stabilize our staffing in years past. We were able to finish that out here this year. So that leads us to a total revenue in Fund 10, $70,327,380, and I'm not leaving out the 57 cents. On the expense side of things, again, these are by major program category. In the 100,000 level of instruction, it's mostly salaries and fringes. In support services, that's all of our instructional support, maintenance and operations and transportation also run through that as well. And then our non-program transactions included in this are special ed transfers, all the activity running through Fund 27. Revenues don't support expenses there. The general fund has to make a transfer to cover that amount. It's no different here than it is in any other school district. Everything has that occur. And then our open enrollment expenses. Pupils open enrolled out. So all told, our expenditures and revenues are balanced. So you'll see that those two do tie out. When we get to the other funds, it's the same format as Fund 10. Special ed, Fund 27, I did mention that transfer in, that is a big part activity that runs through special ed. In state sources, we do get some state and federal grant dollars regarding special ed. Those are very helpful, so we don't want to minimize the impact of those. On the expense side of special ed, all the expenses related to instruction and support and any other kind of non-program transactions. In debt service, Fund 39, this I guess surprised me when I wrote it down, but when I did the math on the years, it makes sense. This will be our 7th debt payment already on our 2018 referendum. So I don't know, maybe I have COVID fog or something, some period of time.
That was a 20-year.
Capital projects, Fund 49. I guess I've talked about that enough here, but that's something that will fall off the books here as from a reporting standpoint as we phase out of that. Fund 50 is our food service operation. Again, Fund 73 our post-employment benefit trust, and all those services I mentioned. When we look at that in a distribution, when we look at our revenues, it's a fairly normal distribution. Big portions of the pie here obviously are state aid and property taxes. State aid number includes some other types of aid. Other than equalization aid, it does include categorical aid as well. In our federal aid, I did mention those two grants, both ESSER and mental health, that were falling off, so you would have seen a higher percentage in that amount in years past, and then just a small amount in the other category. On the expense side, again, from my analysis, this is a fairly normal distribution that we would see in a school district. Salaries and fringes are people, make up a lot of who we are and what we spend our dollars on. Those two combined are 59% for salaries and fringe. If we owned our own transportation fleet, we'd be in the 75 to 80% range, like most Wisconsin school districts are. In purchase services, that's where we see a higher amount. We kind contract out for transportation, but that also covers services and repairs and expenses related to open enrollment. Non-capital is a very fancy name for supplies and materials and things that make us hum on a daily basis. I mentioned that special ed transfer before to Fund 27. And then that small category of other is what we spend on capital and any other kind of normal non-program transactions. This chart is actually one of my favorite. I think it describes we're putting our money where we're supposed to, and it aligns with our strategic plan. No surprise, we're putting a bulk of our dollars into our instruction and support areas, in student success. In caring culture, it's our pupil services activity. In our people, it's our professional development. In finance, facilities, and operations, it's transportation, capital improvements, operations, and maintenance. So our people delivering instruction in the facilities that we provide for them, I'm guessing would be a fairly high area for most school districts. Fiscal points of pride. We are considered a very financially healthy district. We do carry an AA2 bond rating, which is considered excellent. That was very beneficial for us in 2018. It will be beneficial for us if there is any future borrowing at some point down the road. Even though we've declined a little bit of enrollment, it is a relatively stable decline, if you will. Comparatively speaking, there are a lot of school districts that are drastically declining in enrollment. We've been able to hang in there, I guess, if you will. Again, back to that strategic planning process, we're able to put our resources where they're needed. We've addressed our OPEB liability going all the way back to 2005, so almost 20 years ago. We started working on that, and we're in a healthy place related to that. Our goal was sustainability. I think we got there. Last amount of debt issued was in 2018. $65 million referendum. We actually have $431 million worth of debt capacity. So if you want to go to referendum for that in April, you could certainly do that. I wouldn't recommend. But the point here is that if there's ever a need to issue debt, the district has a lot of capacity to be able to allow it to issue debt. Financial quick facts. This is something that I guess I find extremely helpful, certainly for the board and for the community, and for the media as well. So the 8 key points of data that compares last year to this year. When we look at enrollment, down 34, this is on an FTE basis. I thought that was just the best way to include it in here. Most of this relates to graduating a larger senior class, bringing in a smaller 4K and kindergarten class. Expenditures are up 3.5%, mostly related to staffing and inflation. Revenues are up 2.61%. We are at the low revenue limit ceiling of $11,325. State aid is up 2.98%. There was more money put into the aid pot the second year of the biennium. I think due in part to an awareness that some of the federal dollars were going to expire, that there would be a need to backfill that with something. Tax levy up 9.73%. Most of this due in shift in our federal funding from ESSER funding to local funding, and then obviously the passing of the referendum. Revenue limit is up 6.41%, mostly legislative. Our equalized value, this is one wasn't quite sure where this was going to end up this year, but our property value growth was 8.16%. We continue to be above the state average in property growth, and that surprises me, I guess, but when you look around at home prices and property values, it doesn't really surprise me. Just didn't know how sustainable that would be long term.
I just thought of this, you and I have had this conversation, and maybe one that the board should be made aware of, that as membership declines in relation to those manufacturing property values going up, the district, how far away do you think we are from negative tertiary?
A couple of years.
Is the board aware of negative tertiary and how that works?
Half of it.
You wanna give them a quick rundown on negative tertiary?
Essentially, the state takes our expenses and they put them in 3 different buckets. They say, we're gonna give you primary aid, every district gets it. We'll give you secondary aid, that's where the bulk of the money is. And then there's tertiary aid, and those are each funded at a different amount. But if you have a high property value, low student population, the tertiary aid figure will be negative, and it will take money from the secondary pot, to the point where it could take all of the secondary dollars. And there are school districts, a handful of school districts in the state that do not get any state aid at all. I think we're a long ways away from
We're
that.
a long ways from that one, we are certainly, but it is one where I do worry about that. If, I keep watching, the manufacturing park is growing again. I've seen a couple of sites that are being more thoroughly to bring in more business. And the thing is, we need membership to come into the district along with that to avoid the negative tertiary.
Whenever there's an inverse relationship between the two, that's when this negative tertiary aid happens.
Was reassessment, when they reassessed, did that have an impact on this too? I know a lot of people.
It's hard to say that
was
it
last year when
doesn't, but it really just depends on the size of the
That was my
municipality.
fault, I know.
It goes through the reassessment, but technically it's supposed to be done every 5 years. Our rates are equalized, so I always think of it this way: if you're suspended above a body of water and you drop a rock into the water, you have this ripple effect that starts from the center. The equalization process is intended to not have any disparity between the municipality going through a reassessment and one that hasn't.
Chad, what happens if we get like a multi-million-dollar TIF district? Does that count as the equalized value even though we're not getting taxes?
It comes out. But it's when that value comes back on the property that actually is when it can be the most harmful, just depending on, because you might have an unreasonable spike in property values in any given year. But I think we're large enough, we have enough property value within our district that there's likely to never be a TIF that's gonna cause an unreasonable spike for us. And the last is mill rate. 1.45%. I'm proud to say that's right where we expected it to be, even with the passage of a referendum. So that's about as spot on as we can get in terms of mill rate impact. And I'm glad to see that. It's a relief, actually. But it was, the best planning we had at the time, not knowing what those factors were. But they did come to fruition as expected. Next few charts are really just a little bit historic and a little bit of information. First is property valuation per pupil. Green is the state average, and we are in blue. And I guess the story I like to tell with this is why we're funded like we are. We do have a high property value, but we do have a relatively high student enrollment, comparatively speaking. Again, that's us to the state average. These are our property values throughout all of our municipalities. The city of Chippewa Falls remains the largest, almost 30% of our property value, followed by the town of Lafayette at 22.5%. Village of Lake Hallie comes in third, 16.85%, and the town of Eagle Point, 12.24%. Those 4 municipalities make up 82% of our property value. So there's lots of other property within our district, but those are the 4 that make up a big portion of our property. We look at property tax levies. This is a historical view going back to 2003, 2004. We have seen some fluctuation from year to year, but on average, they're pretty stable. They're very aid and legislatively dependent, so they're very reflective of what we see in terms of a legislative process. Next is our district equalized mill rate. Again, going back to 2003, 2004. If I look back at the last 12 years, all those numbers are negative, except for the 2 years that we passed referendums in 18, 19. We've been driving our mill rate down, asking for support if we needed it for specific things, but ultimately still relatively stable over time. When we look at us compared to state averages and the surrounding communities, and our surrounding communities in the Big Rivers Conference. This data is a little bit aged, but this goes back to 22-23. You look at the educational cost in the state average, you look at Chippewa Falls, and you look at the rest of our areas. I guess this just tells us that, you know, I think our community gets a good value in the education for the dollars that we spend. We're not a high spending district, we're not a low spending district either, very close to the state average. When we look at mill rates, again, this is our surrounding communities in the Big Rivers Conference compared to the state average. Again, this is last year. Most people, just like us, are setting this year's levies now, so that data is just not yet available. It gives you a chance to look back at last year to see how we fared, I guess. Next, we have some historical looks at equalized values and mill rates. Goes back to 1984. I have a hard time removing this chart just because it's pre-revenue limit, and it's kind of neat to look back at where property values were compared to now, and where tax rates were then versus now, where it's certainly for last year, but this year's data to look at as well. A little bit fascinating. When we look at tax rates, again, the state is in red, the district is in blue. We do mirror the state budget process again, but it's pretty amazing how close we are to the state average. Next, we just have some components of the revenue limit. Upper left chart is our revenue with any exemptions per pupil. And what you see here is a small amount of growth from historic per pupil increases, but it seems that the gap is getting wider. I would attribute most of this to inflation, but also legislative process. Upper right corner is our maximum revenue limit with all exceptions, without any exemptions. Again, pretty flat until last year. That was really the first bump in the revenue limit of any significance that we've seen in quite a while. Line 6 is our current year membership. Looking back, you'll see that's kind of reflective of our most recent enrollment declines. The chart's a little bit skewed, depending on where the legends are there, but not nearly as significant as what it looks like on the chart. And levy rate, again, we mirror that state average, and we've always been slightly below, even with the passages of our referendum. So I think that's a good story to tell our community. When we look at the revenue limit from a historical perspective, again, that's just us compared to state averages. I don't know that it's ever great to be average, but maybe when it comes to financial things, it's good to be average. We look at our aid membership from an equalized aid perspective. Again, this follows our enrollment and is really trending downward. So we're seeing less pupils in our aid. That's one of the things that Jeff had mentioned earlier. And then this is just a visual representation of that same thing. Traditionally, we've had an upward growth trend over time, but you'll see some flattening out here as we do see some decline in enrollment in the last few years. And then the last bits of information here are just for reference. It'd be helpful if somebody were reading this book and they wanted to know what some of these terms meant. We have included some of our school finance terms in here as well. At this point, turn this back over to Mr. Holmes. Our president has joined us now for answer any questions and move on to the next part of the process.
Thank you. As we conclude tonight's budget presentation, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who contributed to this year's budget development process. Our district continues to demonstrate fiscal responsibility while maintaining our commitment to educational excellence. This is evidenced by our AA2 bond rating, our stable enrollment projections, and our strategic allocation of resources to support student achievement. I'd also like to extend special thank yous to our business manager, Chad Trowbridge, and our district accountant, Jessica Miller, for their exceptional work in developing yet another balanced budget. Their meticulous attention to detail and strategic financial planning have been instrumental in maintaining our district's strong fiscal foundation while supporting our educational priorities. Our success as a district is built on the collaborative efforts of our board members, administrators, staff, and community. Together, we continue to pursue our vision of educational excellence for a changing tomorrow, where we inspire, support, and learn. Thank you all for your ongoing support and dedication to our students' success. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Check.
So you're turning it over to me.
Budget's all yours now.
Okay. What are we supposed to do with it from here? Is this, I didn't have any prepared remarks or something. Was there-
Really? I don't think so. It's just, I think y'all now, hopefully you adopt the budget.
Okay. So, board,
I'll give Angela control of the menu. She can show you what's next.
so we don't have, anything on the agenda here.
So you do, so next would be the agenda-related public forum. You don't have anyone here. So then the next agenda item would be consideration of the final budget and adoption of the levy.
Because you wouldn't let the public make comments if they were here,
Okay.
but they're not. We're not public, so.
I guess I have a couple questions. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine with me.
Thanks, yeah. I guess help me out. Where are we at? Where's our fund balance?
So if you,
What do we have in there?
if you go to the budget publication format, and I'll get you a page number here.
Which page?
I'll get you one. Page 31, 8.8 million. 8,800,000.
Fund balance, okay. And does that remain fairly stable?
It did, we did, we'll talk about that actually in the open session meeting. Just up slightly this year,
Okay.
which should be, as our budgets rise, we should be increasing fund balance.
Sure.
At the same time.
And I noticed that our investment money increased. Is that because of interest rates? Or what caused that to increase?
Solely because of interest rates.
Is that primarily the fund balance and the referendum money that we have yet to spend?
It's primarily when we have available cash that we are
Stuff around.
investing it wisely.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So we are at 4.01 right now, correct?
You are correct.
Subject to any questions, we would be looking for a board member to make a motion to approve the final 2024-2025 budget and adopt the levy pursuant to OE 6 and OE 7.
So moved.
Motion by Fear, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by McElwain. Any further discussion or questions on this? Okay, hearing none, can we have a roll call, please? Susan? I should have asked because
Well, I
I gave you
couldn't-
5 minutes
I
to act
couldn't-
as president.
Yes. So
Okay. we have a
Peggy is
roll call,
our,
please.
Dennis Fair,
Aye.
Gary Jasper absent, Dave Martineau,
Aye.
Sharon McElwain,
aye.
sorry about that. Peggy McKillop, aye. Steve Olson,
Aye.
Dave Check.
Aye. All right, motion carries. The board has approved the final 2024-2025 budget and adoption of levy as presented pursuant to OE 5, or OE 6 and OE 7. Thank you all for your presentations on that tonight. And we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by McElwain, is there a second? Second. Second by Martineau. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned until 6:20 PM.